What's up, y'all? Sparta here. So for this video, I want to talk content creation on the S21 Ultra here. So this is something I started doing mainly because, well, I use phones to, record my videos, edit them, render them, put them up, all that stuff. So it was actually going to be a really interesting thing to see how well the S21 Ultra does in terms of all those things. I've referenced this a couple times. I referenced Juan Bagnell's By the Benchmarks series, and he had the base S21. And the base S21 has heavy throttling on a lot of stuff, mainly because the Snapdragon 888 tends to run very hot. So, and this phone is definitely a testament to that. And what that showed is that the S21 base, again, base S21 doesn't even really beat last year's phones out in terms of a lot of heavy, hard-hitting tasks. Now, if you say things like, oh, but who's really going to video render on the phone? The point isn't that a lot of people video render on their phone, right? The point is that it just shows what the chipset can do, shows what the phone can do, shows how well the phone handles those sort of things. Last year, V60 was pretty much the phone to get if you wanted, like, one of, if not the fastest video renderers on the market. The S20 FE came close, but that phone was quite inconsistent in terms of how well it wanted to render video sometimes. Sometimes it would be wicked fast, sometimes it would just be okay. This phone, in terms of the S21 Ultra, boy, is it a fast phone. But boy, does it render videos fast. Again, I've referenced this as well, but I'll reference it again solely for the video. This phone does beat out the V60. It beats out the 12 Pro Max, which is honestly at this point not that really difficult to do. You can get a you could get a G8 and it'll beat out the 12 Pro Max for 4K video rendering. And just to be fair and just to say exactly how I do it, it was a 34-minute clip taken straight from the iPhone 12 Pro Max, and I took the 4K video, down rendered it to 1080p, and the V60 stomped the 12 Pro Max by like 6 minutes. And I think this phone stomped the beat the V60 out by an extra 3 minutes. So when content creators sit there and tell you, oh, the iPhone is just the best for 4K video rendering. Now, again, if I were to just do a raw 4K video render, even then, because I've done that before, the iPhone still gets beat out. But down rendering the clip to 1080p, it does flex the muscles of the phone quite a bit, and it did it quite quick. And it did it very quick, actually. I think it stopped at 26 minutes. The iPhone was at, like, let me actually check. I have the numbers. So the iPhone did it 22 minutes. Let me lower the exposure here. The iPhone did it in 22 minutes. Oh, no, that was the V60. My bad. 28:43, the iPhone did it in LumaFusion, the 12 Pro. In 22 minutes, the V60 in KineMaster beat out the God, why can't I think of the goddamn phone's name? The 12 Pro. So that's, like I said, that's 6 minutes 43 seconds. The S21 Ultra, in both enhanced and non-enhanced, beats out the V60 by like roughly 4.5 minutes. So that's actually really nice. I just want to say this right now, and I might make an extra video on this. It's probably going to be shorter. Enhanced mode really doesn't do anything in terms of like, one, it does nothing for gaming, so you won't need it for gaming. It really does nothing for video rendering, so you don't really need that. Doesn't really make the phone all that much faster, so you don't need it. I think it's just there. It's definitely a benefit, maybe for the base S21, maybe the S21 Plus, but for the Ultra, there's really nothing there that it doesn't really gain. It only gains like an extra 10 seconds in terms of, performance when it comes to 4K video rendering, down rendered to 1080p in particular. So again, that's really nice. I do feel that the phone does really well there. The problems that you will indeed run into is battery life and heat. Now I know I've made a video, I've commented, and I've actually stated a couple times that this phone gets quite hot, and I wouldn't be doing, well, I wouldn't really call it a job, but I wouldn't be doing my duty as a reviewer, as a tester, if I didn't say that when you do these things, this phone indeed gets hot. So the most recent video I put out on the channel, the comparing the camera performance and and the focusing and all that to the V60, that massive video, I think it's like, 26 minutes, 28 minutes? I don't remember. It's probably 24. Where I had to use both KineMaster and Power Director. So that's just really funny. Doing all of that, being between this and the V60 held battery better. Now, to be fair, there's no SIM card in the V60, so that could be a factor. I was screen recording a lot on both phones for that, and while also using the camera at the same time, and that will be pretty demanding, I guess, and showing you guys exactly how things look and how things work. This phone got pretty damn warm during that, but it wasn't horrendous. The V60 was pretty much same temp the entire time. No real issues with that. And it was a pretty cool day that morning. So it wasn't like, oh, I was out in like 80-degree weather and I'm saying this. No, it was pretty cool out at like 6 to 8 in the morning. So it wasn't like I'm sitting here being like, oh, it's 80 degrees and the phone is getting hot. Why is it getting hot? No, it was pretty cool. But the V60 was pretty cool while this got pretty goddamn warm. And yeah. So again, if you use this phone and you do 4K 60 FPS recording, stabilized or not stabilized, whatever, be sure to keep in mind on the timer and how hot or how warm the phone is getting in your hand, because it will shut off. The phone will indeed not shut off. It'll stop the video and close the camera app, and it'll come up with a pop-up saying phone is hot until the phone is cooled down. You can't use the camera. So keep that in mind. It's very much something that I do feel I do need to bring up because it's very important. If you tend to use this phone for its video capabilities, which is just very capable, you will run into those issues. And if you don't monitor that properly. So yeah. Battery life, this phone kind of dropped fairly, like it was at 100, I believe, when I left. And I think by the time I got back, it was on like 60% battery. Then while I was rendering clips and doing all that, switching between Power Director and KineMaster, it did drop down to 55, I believe. And that's not terrible, especially for the workload I did put it through. But it is indeed something to keep in mind. I never really did any sort of thing like that on a phone before, where I just like maximized the heck out of what you can do with the camera and the overall phone itself. The back won't really get all that hot. What tends to get pretty damn hot is the screen itself. The screen tends to get pretty hot, especially if you're gaming, you will indeed feel that. But in terms of content creation, I do feel that the screen gets pretty damn hot, and that's just something to keep in mind because obviously you got to use the screen to operate the phone. So that's just something that will be that's just going to be something you'll notice. Again, it's very capable. I do feel the 4K 60 video that comes out of this phone is really good. Um, there are issues with 1080p 60 FPS video that I have, especially with stabilization. But overall, I do feel the phone does a really good job at giving you very good quality when it comes to that. The Pro mod on here is really good. There are kinks with it, but like say manual focus while in video, yes, you do get focus peaking, but both in Pro Photo and Pro Video mode, the moment you let go of the focus slider, the focus peaking goes away. I don't know why they have it set up like that. To me, that's stupid. The entire point of focus peaking is so that you can see whether or not something is in focus, and it's nice to have it to where it's persistently there rather than going away the moment you let go of focus, let go of the slider. You do get little haptic clicks. I don't feel it's as fine tuned as the V60 with that. I feel the V60 does a little bit of a better job at giving you that tactile feel, to the point where if you noticed in my last video, you could hear me when I was in the manual mode on the V60 dialing and stuff. You can kind of hear it in terms of and it's kind of weird, but it definitely does help you dial that stuff in a little bit better. Due to the nature of this larger sensor, while I have a fingerprint smudge on my my 10x optical camera, the larger sensor does allow you to stop the shutter speed down even darker than the V60, so that's really nice. It's really cool. You can create some pretty cool scenes with that if you want to do that. Like, say, if you want to do this and go even dimmer and it's bright outside, you can do that. And that's really nice. That's really cool. Lower the exposure yet again. I do feel in terms of that's pretty nice. You get those kind of features. The only problem is that in Pro Photo mode, you don't get any sort of control over your telephoto lenses at all. It would be nice to have at least the ability to focus with the telephoto lenses with manual mode. That would be cool, but it might be a limitation of the sensors itself. I don't know, but that's just something that I do want to point out. Is that you don't get that, and that sucks, but it's not terrible. What else? Honestly, I feel that's it. I do feel like, aside from the fact that in only in 1080p 30 frames per second you can record in HDR10, I do feel that sucks. Irregardless of the fact that certain phones have different standards in terms of the HDR standard they're using and stuff like that, the codecs that they're using, I do feel that it's kind of anemic that Samsung wants to boast about HDR footage on their phone, but you could only do it, I don't know why I keep saying footage, video on their phone. Shows you that I'm still a 90s kid, I guess, but well, you can boast about that on their phone, but you can only do it in probably one of the most least satisfying versions of their video that you can do on the phone. 1080p is not bad. I wish they'd at least allow it in 1080p 60, then I would be fine with it. But 1080p 30 is the only one. Maybe did get an update out today. Let me see something. Let me see if they changed that. Let me go here, because I honestly didn't even. Nope, you still don't. I'll show you guys. Still don't get HDR 10 plus videos. I'm in the 4K mode. Let me scroll. You still just get 8K 24, even though the sensor can do 8K 30. Did I say the sensor? I meant the processor. The processor can do 8K 30. Oh, look, my Galaxy Buds Pro are out for delivery. Yes. But yeah, in terms of things like that, I do feel like there are limitations I don't understand. But I'm going to be real. I don't care about 8K 30. And the HDR10 Plus thing does bother me, but it's not a deal breaker. I do feel the overall capability and power of this phone is more than enough for me to get over things like that. The 4K 60 video on here is very satisfying. It's very nice. I feel the iPhone might have a slight leg up, but it's not a night and day. It's not like one is terrible and one is better. I feel one is just slightly better with how to handle certain things, while the other is better at handling the other things. I feel like this is more handled with its HDR. I feel like Apple, and especially with sunset scenes, it's a little bit too like Animorphs holographic looking when it comes to when you shift the phone. Whereas this, I don't really have any sort of issues with that. And I do feel the focus is fine in terms of like very quick going into focus kind of thing. I do feel like the phone does really fine with that. In terms of pictures, in terms of like macro shots, like I've stated in the previous video, I don't feel this phone is the greatest for that. Mainly because unless you are in manual mode, then you'll be fine. But I do feel they need to tighten up the focusing on the other two lenses, the two telephoto lenses. Then I'll be fine with it. But I do feel the telephoto lenses in particular are really nice. They add a very good amount of, especially the 10X, adds like a very good amount of detail while being very cool to use. And you could wow people with that, no problem. I do still feel like this phone is the king of zoom. I'll come out with a separate camera video talking about my final thoughts when it comes to this. But in terms of what this phone can do in terms of that, I do feel this phone is really good in terms of its capabilities. It's just how it's utilized and how Samsung leverages that gets a little bit wonky over time. That's all I really want to say with that. But yeah, the main takeaways from here is that it's in terms of what I've been testing, it's the fastest phone for 4K video rendering. It does that really well. The phone gets hot and the battery indeed goes down quick if you're doing a very heavy shooting, if you're heavily shooting that day. So yeah, if you're doing short burst clips, that's one thing. But if you're doing like, say, every clip is a 10-minute clip, like say if every clip's 30 seconds or 30 seconds to a minute, you'll be fine. But if you're doing every clip being like 10 minutes and they're back to back to back, you're going to run into some heating issues. So yeah, I'd be advised to just remember that and keep that in mind for this. This is Sparta. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks for support. Let me know if you do use your phone for these kind of things. If this kind of thing is important to you. Let me know in the comment section below if you've been running into any sort of issues or any quirks or anything like that. Thanks for 1,028 subscribers. I really do appreciate it. Have a good one.